All right, what's up, y'all? We're back with the end of week 2 for SDB Season 5. I'm here with Alex16, Spore Master. What's up,
Happy
Alex?
to be providing. Hey there, happy to be providing some thoughts. Unfortunately, I got spored this week, so I have to hand that title off. But yeah, happy to be watching some matches and giving some analysis.
We're going to do things a little differently this week. We're going to lightly cover most of the matches that weren't as close and then spend some more time on the nitty-gritty ones. So we'll get started here. This first match is Alex himself against Silly Nips.
Yeah, I had a very different idea for how this match would go, and it wound up going. Um, my basic plan going in was to use Sandy Shocks to get through Milotic and Mandibuzz and Cobalion, and have Psychozar as the safe switch into Toedscruel, which walls Sandy Shocks. But it didn't play out that way.
Yeah, no melodic, and this, as we see, this Toedscruel is just wonderfully crafted to shut down the Sandy Shocks. And it really comes into effect here on turn 12, I think, is where we first start to see it. Takes hardly any damage from Shocks, which is a really important role to fill when you know it's coming. And from here on, it's just going to set up the tempo.
Yeah, and there I should have just clicked Ice Spinner on it and killed it.
You had Ice
and it would have
Spinner
been
on
a very
this?
different game. I did, yeah.
Yeah, that would have made a big difference. But we see the Toedscruel able to come in and thwart the Sadie Shocks. So the Gyarados comes in, tries to go for it all, and these two waterfalls are just out of range of killing. If we had seen a flinch or something, it might have ended up differently. But with the Gyarados dead, I think it kind of just left Toedscruel to clean up here. Everything else is pretty vulnerable to it. It's got Spore active again. I think it knocked off the safety goggles or something at some point.
Yeah, it did.
And then the Cabalion's always there. That was really valuable for taking those big overheats. And Toedscruel just cleaned this one up with help of Darmanitan again. Darmanitan really didn't even do big numbers this game. It really was mostly the Toedscruel.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty true of like a lot of the Darmanitan games where because you know you're fighting it, you build a team that can sort of deal with it, which makes your team weaker to other things, but you're usually pretty covered against the Darmanitan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it'll be pretty rare in our draft games that people get 6-0'd by Darmanitan, but I think it will be very common for the Darmanitan team to still win.
Right, yeah. All right, our next game was Natho against Tibbs, and this one starts off hot because one of the biggest moments of this match is the Araquanid, this AV Araquanid right off the bat. Takes nothing from the Draco, gets the first para on Body Slam, hits Liquidation on the Shock switching in, and then turn 3 soaks a Moonblast and gets another para on the Body Slam. And this match is just flipped upside down right from the start.
Yeah, it's really hard looking at is this Tibbs' team too, because he immediately finds out that it's AV because he has Frisk. But his two physical attackers are Heracross, who, you know, you could be running Stone Edge or something, but you probably don't have a super effective move into Araquanid, and Incineroar, which gets killed by Liquidation. So your two options for breaking through that AV are immediately sort of off the table, and he just has to chip it down with these special attackers who are just getting, you know, paralyzed and liquidationed on the switch. It was tough.
Yeah, this AV build is so good into the 6 Pokemon that Tibbs brought. I'm glad Nathan led it, and boy, he got his money's worth, especially with those two paras.
Yeah, and the para on Noivern really came into play at the end of the game too, because that was one of his only fast Pokemon left. And Nathan just could handle it no problem because it was no longer a factor. I think it even got paralyzed against the Silvally Ghost at one point when it could have taken it out.
Yeah, and the Silvally Ghost is the other thing I want to highlight. This is such an expertly crafted counter to the Guts Heracross. With Silvally, you never know what you're going to get. You know, sometimes it's really underwhelming. Other times it's untouchable. And this almost felt like the latter, you know. taking 31 max for Mega Horn with the chance to miss with the burn damage ticking. All he has to do is not get unlucky with sleep turns. And we see Flame Charge, Heat Alert. Love this. Hits decent damage on the Heracross. Not enough to kill it, but enough to get the speed boost, Revenge kill it. And against 2 paralyzed Pokemon, it's over from here. Yep, Fortunate Paralyzed, like you said. And Silvally Ghost cleans it up. Very nicely.
Yeah, and at that point, too, I mean, you can imagine, like, if you don't have a Paralyzed Primarina and Noivern, if they had dodged the Body Slam Paralysis, you know, that can be different. Like, you can no longer bring in Zarude on Noivern. Primarina does decently into Aerodactyl and Nihilego, because it's, you know, Nihilego hits it super effectively, but it hits it super effectively back. So this Paralyzes from the Iraq when it really, really mattered in that end game.
Yeah, and that was pretty good luck on Nathan's part getting those off of Body Slams. But took it and ran with it. And I'd like to shout out Meter Beam, missing for the 2nd week in a row. Maybe one day we'll see that make contact. All right, next match, we've got Bombi against Icona. This is another good one. This was a great match. We saw a different style team out of Bombi when he revealed pretty early on that this isn't an ice team, this is a Trick Room team. And this was really cool to see. This was very nice alongside your slow heavy hitters like the Executor, the Dawn Fan, and of course the Arctozolt.
The way that Bombi drafted in retrospect now, I think he has been planning to bring Trick Room against someone for a while. I know that he's been doing a lot of prep for his matches. I think he and Nips and I don't know, maybe some other people have been prepping together, but just the way that he brought Trick Room and Arctozolt to completely make Icona prep for a fast Arctozolt, and then bring, you know, the opposite, a slow team, is just great, like, drafting bait, I guess.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has a lone Executor too makes me think that he's been planning to bust this out since the very beginning, and he thought that this was the moment.
Yeah, I love Slowking for being able to do that, for being able to like support so many different style teams and really be the key piece to a lot of them. Of course, Eggy has Trick Room too, but couldn't do it without the Slowking. And yeah, like you said, baiting in stuff like Scarf Ogerpon, which completely folds in Trick Room. Gets its moment
and
later,
outspeeds Arctozolt in Slush Rush. So you would think to bring that and you know, have something that can at least hit it if it's weakened and take it out, but just completely goes away in terms of usefulness if it's under Trick Room.
That being said, I think this game really turned around turn 20 when we see Bombi gets this late game Trick Room, and it looked pretty bad for Icona at this point. Not gonna lie, I thought this was just about over with Arctozolt poised to sweep.
Yeah, how many turns of Trick Room does he have at this point?
3 turns with 4 Pokemon left, and I imagine, 12% Ogerpon, 30% Hydreigon. Super effective on the Tentacruel if it doesn't have Protect. It looked pretty doomed from here, especially with the healthy Tauros in the back to clean up and a Slowking still to break through.
Yeah, because you would think that from here, Hydreigon and Ogerpon are the only 2 Bolt Beak resists. They're going to die because they're at 30% and 12%. And then Cleavor, I don't think it's especially bulky. So he sacks Tentacruel.
Sacks the Tentacruel, yep, and brings in the Cleavor. And I have to assume he calced this because I think we see later in the game that Bolt Beak did like 84%. So he knows to switch out there. Secretly, this Cleavor was sashed.
Yeah, so it seemed a bit scarier. I mean, it's still, tough to have your Cleavor taking 84% when there's a Tauros in the back too that outspeeds it.
Mm-hmm. And this intimidates really rough too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember on this turn, we're not going to see in the replay, but Icona spent a long time thinking, like right in this moment, right after the Intimidate hit. So I think that he was calculating for a lot of different endgame scenarios here because, and I can't see, it's 2 turns of Trick Room after this?
Yep. One
he's
turn
probably
after
thinking
this, actually. Yeah, 1 turn left.
1 turn after this.
And that's where we see Psycho Cut, which is just brilliant for being able to net that KO despite the -1 attack.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of the Psycho Cut, he's carrying X Scissor too. No surprise there, but getting that KO on Slow King was a roll, if I'm not mistaken, because of the -1 attack. So a close moment there. And Zolt comes in, doesn't quite die to the X Scissor. I'm not sure what he went for that there. Is Stone Axe not 100 accuracy, maybe?
It's not, and at this point, he just needed any damage because Ogrepon and Hydreigon both outspeed it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And also he's sashed. So
and he is.
He's got that too.
Cleaver cleans it up. So excellent set there, cleaning up despite the Intimidate when backed against a wall against a very tricky team. Nicely done. All right, this next match here is my game against Redshirt.
Yeah, and I have some more in-depth analysis about this one, just because Brett and I picked out a couple that we wanted to go more in-depth on. So I have some. When I saw this, I mean, we did a good amount of prep for Redshirt between you, me, and Trey and Ikana, and I know that you were deciding between a couple different. I mean, really, like completely different builds of teams.
This matchup was so painful to prep for. It really felt like both teams had insane threats that the other didn't have answers to.
Yeah.
So prep was just so tough.
It felt like in all of the prep too, like basically the common trends were you needed Cress to wall something.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was going to be necessary to be a wall, and you needed Haxorus and Lucario to really do a lot of the heavy lifting on damage. And then the rest of the Pokemon are just how do you fill in to help support them and keep them able to do that. And the main thing that I was worried about for you looking at this match is if this is a banded Metagross and it clicks knockoff into a Crest switch in, I mean, that Crest is probably just done for the rest of the game. Even if it doesn't kill it immediately, it's probably going to die, and it's probably going to die in 2 hits.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's going to become a lot harder to deal with it coming back in. It's going to be a lot harder to deal with Enamorus. But another thought I had is that looking at your team, I mean, half of your team deals with Enamorus really well. More than half, even. I mean, Salazzle hits it super effectively. Lucario does. Tinkaton does.
Yep.
And Wo-Chien, I mean, it's like it doesn't take, deal with Moonblast the best, but it can Stun Spore, it can Ruination, Leech Seed, like it has some options too. So Enamorus was one where it looks really scary on paper, but you have a lot of things that it doesn't want to come in on.
Yeah, I think most of the mons I want to bring anyway had a good answer built in for Enamorus. Easy to slot in an Enamorus answer on most of these mons.
Yeah. And another thing I was a bit surprised to see was no Raikou from Redshirt. But that might have been just along the line of he thought you would probably bring Swampert for Metagross. Swampert's pretty good Raikou switch into, don't want to give Swampert more opportunities to Earthquake things.
Yeah,
and get up rocks.
He mentioned at some point he was expecting Whimsicott, and I bet Whimsicott also walls Raikou very well.
Yeah, it does. It does.
All right, you just tell me if you want me to stop or rewind or skip ahead.
Yeah, so right here, immediately off the lead, I think that... So walk me through what you were thinking with Salazzle, because I have my theories too, but like what made you look at his team and pick Salazzle?
Salazzle's super good into his lineup. Pretty much nothing on his team resisted poison and fire, so I knew it was going to make progress pretty much no matter the matchup. The build was Fire Blast, Sludge Bomb, Toxic Taunt, Focus Sash. So I knew there was a pretty good chance that I could, when I saw this lineup, the only one that really immediately threatens my guy is Seismitoad. That really threatens Salazzle immediately. Seismitoad, maybe Earthquake, Metagross, but like both those Pokemon are such a problem for me that I'm willing to trade Toxic or an attack on them for this guy's life.
Gotcha.
And then any of the others, I'm pretty happy trading a Toxicon. I was hoping not to see Heal Bell, but even these slower Pokemon like Muck and Enamorus did not want to catch a poison early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Umbreon, I mean, Umbreon's not a great lead. It can't set hazards, and when you're prepping for Umbreon, you probably have at least one thing on your team that can really blow it up because it's hard to break through otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And if they lead Umbreon and you lead that thing, then you immediately progress against it.
Yeah, I gotta say, immensely satisfying landing Toxic on Muck thanks to Corrosion. Very cool ability. Very excited to use that.
All right, let's go forward from here. Just some, Toxic knockoff, basic stuff. You just go for some chip damage, and he goes for a Toxic Spike, I
Yeah.
wasn't totally sure why he did that because you have three things that are immune to it,
Hmm.
and Salazzle can probably just come back in and soak it up. Like I
Yeah.
thought that probably from there you would have a good up. I mean, it's really tempting to try to land poison or just toxic or regular poison on like a Wochien or a Haxorus. But I felt like there are a lot of things that would be able to come in and pivot back to Salazzle first.
Right. I think it was trying to immediately pressure the Wo Chin. I mean, that's probably the best application of Toxic Spikes, and he's very vulnerable to it.
Hmm.
But the Seismitoad switch didn't really complement that well. I think it would have been more effective if they went immediately into something that forced Wo Chin's hand. Like Umbreon, this is my first choice. Depends on who else, but the
Hmm.
Seismitoad, I don't know, kind of allowed me to get out of there without being punished.
Yeah, and then so he has Seismitoad in on Cress, and I feel like it's pretty unlikely you run a grass move on Cress. That might have been a good chance to get up Stealth Rock or something like that, but I think going down Brown is fine too. Your Dark type against their Psychic type
Yeah, and
probably going to
we
work out
later
fine for
found
you.
out that this is Assault Vest, so no rocks, no toxic, just there to soak damage and dish it back out. But the Umbreon comes in
Hmm.
on the Psychic type, of course.
Yeah. That Moonblast damage made me actually go calc to see if that was a specially defensive Umbreon because it did so little. And I assume you don't have much special attack on Cress or anything because I know you're running a Combine set anyway.
Yeah, this was
Like
max defense, no investment. So I wasn't
yeah,
too surprised by the 23. I think I had seen the same in Mox.
yeah. And that 23, that's against a no special defense Umbreon. That's just how Umbreon is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my first thought when I saw, because that reveals it's physically defensive.
Hmm.
And what I thought from there is, how do you weaken this thing enough that Haxorus can kill it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like Crest probably isn't going to do the job. Wochien could maybe like chip it down, but like how do you just get this thing into a range that like it doesn't completely wall Haxorus or kill it with one or two foul plays?
Yeah, and I definitely have that in mind because I think later in the game I'm happy just taking chip shot Moonblast at it because immediately with Hackers on my team, the first thing when I load in is I look in, I'm like, okay, who do I have to break open? In this game, it's Seismitoad and Umbreon.
Yeah.
So those are the main targets. Basically, kill them no matter what, as long as Haxorus is still in the back. Soak up the spikes.
Yeah, the heal ball and then the taunt. So were you thinking that that would be a wish turn?
Yeah, almost certainly a wish or yeah, I think wish was most likely or switch to something like Seismitoad that might set rocks, um,
Hmm.
or even back to the muck. I didn't want him to come in, set toxic spikes, and make me switch out and back in again.
Hmm.
So I'm not upset. I took 29% there, which wasn't bad, really.
Yeah, and you can bring in a Wochien against a taunted Umbreon. There's nothing it can do to you.
Yep. Good muck double switch on their part, honestly. Whether I'm staying in on Salazzle or switching into an Umbreon answer, the muck's good there.
Yeah, they might have even thought you were bringing in Lucario on the taunted Umbreon.
Possibly.
And yeah, because they do have Fire Punch on this Muck,
Yeah, this muck
which
was ready to handle Lucario.
yeah, yeah, and I was surprised Muck lived that Psychic, um, but Muck's also really bulky.
Yeah.
So here's another moment that I thought was important too. So you brought in Wochi on the Seismitoad, and they got a special defense drop here,
Yeah.
off of that Focus Blast.
Yeah, that hurt.
We know now that that's AV Seismitoad.
Hmm.
So I was thinking, this thing probably has like Ice Beam or Sludge Wave or something. I don't know if it revealed it later. I don't think it got a chance to. But with that special defense drop, I thought it might actually just be worth staying in and going for this. I know that Wochien does, sometimes run grass moves, but usually not. Like it could
Yeah.
have Giga Drain or something, which would be rough. But Wochien is one of those mons where I feel like so looking at Red Shirt's team, like he doesn't have a lot that really threatens it too much. Like Umbreon can't touch it. Tauros can, but Wo-Chien, is pretty physically defensive. Metagross can't really touch it,
Muck's
and
already
Muck's
low.
almost dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that might have even been worth just staying in and trying to take it out with the special defense drop. Um, but I also don't know what else he was running on set and relying on Focus Blast and all that stuff too.
Yeah. So yeah, Wo-Chien was definitely vulnerable here. I see the threat of grass attack like Giga Drain. But I took the chance because in my position, like I said earlier, it's kill Seismitoad, kill Umbreon at any cost. So even if it
Yeah,
means taking 50% from another Focus Blast, I liked my chances.
yeah. Leech Seed on Umbreon's really good too because then you can really freely pivot into something like Lucario if it stays in. Getting the leftovers off is great because then it's not chip healing. I feel like you're right. Like anything to wear down this Umbreon and wear down the Seismitoad just so that Haxorus can Swords Dance and Sweep is going to really, really go far.
And that Toxic definitely could have been impactful, but getting the leftovers off was worth it in my case. Because that's the one thing that sticks. I can damage the Umbreon with Wish. It's just going to heal it off, but the leftovers will be gone forever. So that was, I think, a big moment in the match was getting that trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there he's kind of forced to either switch or wish, because when you're at 60% and leaf seeded, I mean the real like worry I would have there is I'm going to wish, they're going to switch in Lucario. I still am leech seeded. There's nothing I can do to it. If I switch out, are they going to Swords Dance and sweep me? If I stay in and protect, are they going to Swords Dance and sweep me? What do I do if I'm this 60% Umbreon who just witched and they bring in like a big fighting threat that can set up and sweep my team.
Right. So the Enamorus ends up being pretty good here. And this is a really interesting role. Actually, I didn't talk too much about this. This 35% Moonblast is the exact maximum hit, but only because it had 16 special attack EVs. Redshirt posted the pace later and had 16 special attack EVs. Without the 16 special attack EVs, it's out of range. It's 34.4 max for no investment. And that's what I assumed when I saw this. I'm like, oh, it rolled a 35. That's not really possible with no investment. So I thought it was a heavy special attacker.
So you thought it was a low roll because it had some investment.
A lower mid roll, yeah. Rather than an absolute max roll with, more than a max roll, I should say.
Yeah, and so we know that the Enamorus was heavy duty boots. We know that from later. I'm not sure what Chris really does to threaten Enamorus here. Like if I'm redshirt here, I might try to stay in and like Calm Mind and chip down this Crest because like that would really open up Metagross and Tauros to come in,
right,
and put on some pressure.
Yeah, you're right. That switch out there is a little weird.
Yeah, and probably, I mean, I don't know this for sure with like a minimum special attack Crest or Enamorus, but what's your Salazzle's hit points?
Low.
Damn, yeah, like 30%. What's like Enamorus with no special investment there might even kill it on that switch in with Moonblast. Taunt there is really good because the Umbreon's toxic.
Yeah, this is prime setup gaming.
Yeah.
Taunted, toxic, and just out of range. A max roll foul play was exactly enough to kill me here. Like,
yeah,
to the one.
Yeah, and if Redshirt calcing this, he might think that you might have some attack. Like you've I think revealed Psychic and Flash Cannon, but you could be a mixed Lucario. I mean, who knows?
Mm-hmm. Could have forgotten to zero out my IVs.
Yeah.
So not a terrible risk, but then the Umbreon's just retired because it's not doing anything after that.
Yeah, and then the Psychic into the AV Toad. The Focus Blast there was really scary.
Yeah.
I was surprised because, I mean, another scenario, 30% of the time, he misses that Focus Blast. You see that the Psychic's not going to be doing enough damage. Or did you have Aura Sphere, maybe?
I did not. I had Vacuum Wave.
Gotcha. So, I don't know if you would stay in, maybe you would, and just get it down to really low damage for Haxorus. But if he misses that Focus Blast, you might just still have Lucario in the pack.
Yeah. So with Umbreon down, I really like this opportunity to get rid of the Seismitoad. I don't even need to set up to kill it. So take the shot, and that opens up Haxorus to win the game later.
Yeah, and the Enamorus on the so the full health Enamorus can always come in there because Haxorus doesn't have a Sword Stance up.
Right.
Like that's not the worry, but the real worry with Haxorus is if it gets the Sword Stance, is it going to kill that Enamorus?
Yeah. I was doing the calc on the side and assumed worst case scenario, which was bold, max health, max defense, and it was max 97% or like max 98% after a Sword Stance. So I was like, damn, I need to get rocks up.
Yeah, I found this sequence really really funny.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's pretty
this is
clear.
goofy.
So the second time you T-Wave, it's like, okay, maybe he's expecting a switch. The third time you T-Wave, it's like, okay, you're definitely sacking this Ticketon. So could you pause it for a sec?
Uh-huh.
So if I'm Redshirt here, it's like, I would think like, so he's gonna sack this Ticketon. What's coming in next? It's got to be Haxorus. Right?
Yeah, like 1,000%, right?
It's got to be Haxorus. And I don't know, if I got Muck here, like I would set up at least one layer of Toxic Spikes, maybe two, because Haxorus has how many hit points left?
He's full.
Yeah, so I know that he gets Bullet Punched by Metagross later, and it does like 40%.
Yeah, it leaves him at 13. A Choice Scarf Bullet Punch after Defense Drop left me at 13.
Yeah, and like and Haxorus, takes out, I think, Tauros and Enamorus, and its Sword Dance is one turn. So if that's 3 turns of getting poison damage, like that's a shot.
Yeah.
Because then you can probably bring in the Metagross to Bullet Punch it and kill it, and still be able to pivot back out and lock yourself into Meteor Mash or something. And if you're just going to sack Tinkaton, why not just sit there and get up to full health?
Also true, yeah. I mean, at some point, I probably click the button or switch out. Definitely a mistake not setting up at least a layer of spikes there, because it would have made my end game a lot harder. Maybe in that case, if spikes were up and I was poisoned...
Yeah, if you're poisoned right now and you had just taken, let's say 24%, because it would have been the Swords Dance turn, and it would have been the Scale Shot turn. And I gotta imagine you still would have Swords Dance because you gotta kill the Enamorus somehow. That leaves you at... Yeah, I mean, that leaves you at like... I can't exactly see your percentage, but... I mean,
52.
Bullet Punch range. 52. So
Yeah.
24 from that, you're at 28. And I think Bullet Punch does 39. So imagine a different endgame here where you have Cress and Wochien against a full health Metagross, Tauros, and an Enamorus Syrian.
Yeah, absolutely. In hindsight, from my point of view, I wonder if I should have gone for the EQ instead of the Skill Shot and just try to tank the Tauros from full... Actually, no, Tauros outspent me.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because you have to kill an Enamorus somehow. And he doesn't know you have Poison Jab, so he's maybe willing to risk it.
Yeah, and I was actually very scared. This was a really long turn for me, because if it was bold max defense, like I said, then this is 97% max. And I didn't want to lose the game here off of not killing the Enamorus. So when I saw that it had boots, I was like, crap, I need another plan.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, Calmine Crest still wins from here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Which is why I was happy
really tight.
Clicking the button, getting my damage. If it Draining Kissed me, it would have been back up to 40%.
Yeah.
Anyway, we later learned that it was half defense, half special defense, so that Poison Jab is probably guaranteed. And that's it.
Yeah, and there's not really... I mean, Tauros has Intimidate, but you only have so many switches. You can't really Intimidate it down. Maybe going into Tauros first? Earlier, but he also didn't know you have Poison Jab, so...
Right. I think at that point he's kind of banking that I don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a tough game. Boy, I'm glad to be done with it. I was really stressing over that one. Mocking was hard. Prep was hard.
Yep, and Skanky, I'll see you next week. Or no, Retro. Sorry, Retro, I'll see you next week.
Yep.
The next one is...
All right. Good deal. Moving on. This is James versus Chad.
Yes.
Some familiar faces on one team, some interesting faces on the other. One of the most fun sets from this was the Specs Sylveon that just tore apart. I think this was AV Donphan, was it not?
It was, yeah. So when he hit Hyper Voice, I was watching this, and I think by that point we knew it was AV based on the damage, and it did what 50% to the AV Donphan. I had to go, Smogon, Sylveon, what's this thing's special attack, and figure out what was going on there. And then it did,
49, and then 67 to Vaporeon. Yeah. That did big numbers good.
Yeah. And it was looking pretty bad for Chad at that point too. That really, helped bring things around. I think he even said something in the chat like, this isn't going well. Because he was having such trouble getting through the Donphan, which was just coming in, on Duraludon every single time and threatening with Earthquake.
Threatening with knockoff, too.
Threatening with knockoff. I think he just rapid spinning, But then, you bring in your Spec Sylveon, of course, and you kill Donphan and you take out Vaporeon.
Yeah, what walls? Walls don't matter here. Yeah, destroys the defensive core of this team. Unfortunately, there's a Menshao on the other team.
Yeah, and I don't know this for sure, but I think that this is banded Menshao. Because it does kill, I think, a full hit point Blastoise.
It does a big
2/3
damage
hit point Blastoise
on Blastoise.
Yeah, and this close combat kills it. So,
and that's just all it takes is you click good stab move with big attack, threatened somewhat here by like a Scarf, or I don't think it has priority move, but threatened here by a Scarf. Switches out to get the defense drop. And gets this beautiful static, and after that, there's nothing left in the way of Menshao and Ogerpon.
Yeah, Zarude is really good until anything happens to it, and then it's really bad.
Yeah, it comes in later, picks up a kill, but there's just not enough left to stop these two, and they clean it up. So, nice switch there, saving the Menshao, getting the lucky static para. Good buttons. Yeah, and Chad is basically forced to go for a Swords Dance there and try to crit the Ogerpon. Because there's just no way he can break through it. Possibly been scary. Necrozma probably doesn't die either. I think he probably needs to crit both the Ogerpon and the Necrozma to win from there. Mm-hmm. Menshao probably dies from one quick attack. It's got like 60 defense, but I think so. Yeah. And I don't even know if a crit quick attack would do it against Necrozma. Yep. All right, next up we got Boss versus Regipeter. This one was really fun to watch. Yeah, it was fun if you like one Pokemon doing all the work for one team. I thought this first turn was so funny. Like, both the pink ground water types going toxic, and of course Peter's misses. Yeah, that's a lovely way to start a game. Gets rock, and the pivotal turn is right there, turn 4. For me, this was basically the winning moment of the game. This big Trailblaze into the Crobat just destroys the Gastro on the crit. And once the Gastro is out of commission, it's just a matter of bleeding out Trick Room. Good sack there, traded the Energy Ball. And it's curtains with that agility on the last turn of Trick Room. And that was really important because, so Raikou basically had two things on Boz's, ChatGPT team that walled it, theoretically walled it, Gastrodon and Porygon 2. And Gastrodon, if it was coming in fresh, it could take a Trailblaze and Earthquake it. It might not even know that it has Trailblaze. But getting hit by the Trailblaze on the switch-in, it's like, okay, now you have one single thing that needs to wall Gallade, that needs to wall Raikou. Porygon 2 gets spored anyway. The upper hand was just Peter flexing. That is crazy. I'm so sad it didn't work out, because honestly, it should have. Yeah, the Excel Rock that does 12% that he was trying to avoid. I looked at this match and I thought, Peter was really angry about getting swept by Memphis. Yeah. Another expert Gallade set. And a well-deserved win. All right, next match. This was Cam against Astra. This was a fun match to watch. Yeah.
And so my immediate thoughts on looking at these teams are I looked at Cam's team and I thought, okay, there's like a pretty obvious game plan here. He's going to keep hazards off with, Weezing and Blastoise, and then he's going to pivot into Darm and kill things. Like he's got Flygon, Jolteon, and Grimmsnarl, which have, very fast pivots, U-turn, Volt Switch, and Prankster Parting Shot. He's got, Blastoise might be a Shell Smasher, but looking at the team, it's probably just Rapid Spin Set. And then he has Darmanitan to kill things.
Yeah.
I looked at this and, with Darmanitan, it's always like, what item is it? Is it, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, or Life Orb? I thought probably looking at Astro's team, he's got a lot of things that are faster than Darm, Zoroark, Celebi, Starmie.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just Choice Scarf set. Probably the plan is, pivot in Darmanitan, go for a super effective move, and if he switches something in, it's probably going to take 50% from Flare Blitz, even if it's resisted. And then he'll go back out to Grimmsnarl, pivot back into Darmanitan, and do it again.
Yeah, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and keep, the hazards off so Darm isn't getting constantly chipped by Stealth Rock sort of thing, but, that's basically the game plan.
Yeah.
Whereas Astro, he's got kind of just a balanced offense sort of team. He's got the double grass type, which was a choice into Darm.
That is a choice, yeah. I mean, first glance, I'm like, wait, what's the Darm answer here? Is it Conk? Is it Starmie?
Yeah.
Hard to say.
And what we saw throughout the match is, like, there aren't really any Darm answers, but because Cam has all of these really fast pivots, and Astro has all of these really slow Pokemon that theoretically threaten Darm, he never wanted to bring it in on them. Like, Tangrowth revealed it had Earthquake. If he gets a Parting Shot on Tangrowth,
he's still risking.
Do you bring in Darm? I mean, probably not, because if you get Earthquake, it dies, and then what's your offense?
Yep.
Jolteon? I don't know. So even though there aren't really Darm answers, and of course he leads off with it immediately because, it's probably Scarfed. I think he reveals it immediately because it does outspeed the Zoroark. But, like, why not? You outspeed everything besides Scarf Starmie. Might as well go for a U-turn and see where the chips fall.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of the game is get Darm in, and there's no prerequisites for that. So it makes sense to send him out on turn 1 and start getting to work.
Yeah, I do have a couple other thoughts about, like, Pokemon they didn't bring, too.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was surprised about is that Cam on his bench for this one had Iron Leaves, Lucario, Frostlass, Lickilicky, and Minior. Leaves, not surprised, there's a lot of grass types. Lucario, there's a Conkeldurr, Mach Punch kills it.
Yep.
But I thought Frostlass really threatened Astro's lineup. Maybe complemented Darm well, maybe not, but even just looking at what he brought, Shadow Ball, Ice Beam hits a lot of his Pokemon super effectively.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then Astro had Kilowattrel, Screamtail, Tinkaton, Cyclozar, and Shuckle on the bench. I thought Kilo might have been, made the roster because it's pretty fast, outspeeds Darm, easy switch into Jolteon, but...
Mm-hmm.
And then, Screamtail, it seems like it's maybe a good answer, but it probably just gets two-shot by Darm anyway. So those are all my impressions just off the bat, looking at the teams. And then there's just a lot of sort of mid-grounding. Astro has got a rev of room to switch into Grimmsnarl, which is, pretty good because I think he only has a Fairy and Dark attacks on it.
Yeah, this rev room just comes in all game on the Grimmsnarl. And the fact that it's also got Parting Shot, so it can pivot slow out of Grimmsnarl or out of whatever Grimmsnarl brings in is brilliant. I mean, he uses that all game long and constantly has momentum because of it.
Yeah. One thing I thought that he might have done better with it is that there's, like, the only poison switch in is Flygon, really. Because Weezing, I think it's neutral, Grimmsnarl's weak, Darm, Jolteon are, paper, and Blastoise, it's somewhat bulky, but doesn't have any recovery, and Poison is really
good at
wearing down, like a Rapid Spinner or a Shell Smasher. So I would like to see Astro just clicking Gunk Shot every time that River Room comes in, especially after this Flygon gets Sleep Powdered. Because there, what does Cam bring in the Gunk Shot? He doesn't really have an answer. And maybe part of the problem is, you kill Jolteon with the Gunk Shot or something, and then he just brings in Darm and kills something, but at least at that point you're trading. and putting pressure on these fairy walls, which give Astro a lot of trouble in this match.
Yeah, and to that point, even Tangrowth could be clicking poison more often. I think it eventually does.
Yeah, and I feel like if I'm looking at how this mid game is going with like a lot of pivoting between Weezing and Grimmsnarl, Celebi setting up rocks, Tangrowth coming in, coming back out,
Mm-hmm.
I would be thinking, how do I get these things into a range where Starmie and Conkeldurr can start threatening knockouts? Because Tangrowth, Celebi, they're never killing Grimmsnarl. It's healing a lot just coming in and then parting shot out and getting leftovers recovery. So like, how are you putting pressure on these things? And I think that like from here, that's got to be sort of the mid game plan, like chipping down these guys so that this what I think is a Specs analytic Starmie.
Is it analytic? I didn't even consider that.
It is analytic. So I think on this turn, Blastoise switches in. So he just brought in Starmie. Yeah, Blastoise switches in, and it takes a chunk. It takes like 40%.
That does so much damage.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Cam calced this and knows now that it's Specs analytic because he stays in here. I don't think that was a sacrifice. I think he just knew that the non-analytic Hydro Pump wouldn't kill. But you've got this thing that like
that makes it okay. That explains the range difference. I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's why I think that interaction went how it went, and I think Cam is probably thinking the same thing. Like, I got to get these rocks off because if he's just has Starmie in and is clicking Hydro Pump, and I'm just switching in, like I need a wall that can actually switch in and pressure this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets rocks off, and I think that he just sacks Blastoise here.
At this point, yeah. No.
Oh, he sacks Jolteon. Okay.
Sacks the Jolteon, which surprised me that he considered this 25% Blastoise more valuable at this point.
Yeah, me too. Especially because Jolteon could probably come in afterwards on the Starmie and threaten it out, and maybe Volt switch back into Darm or something like that. But I think either way, he's thinking like, maybe one thing he's thinking too is this thing could miss a Hydro Pump. Why not just go for this?
Mm-hmm. So not being Scarfed, of course, the Darmanitan's going to switch it out, and Astro sacks this Zoroark.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. Zoroark can't touch Grimmsnarl. It doesn't have to be Darmanitan. It's at 4%. Mm-hmm. That's a fine sack. But so go back a turn or two there. So Jolteon dies, Darm comes in, Zoroark dies. And so here, Cam is probably thinking, what can I go to that, is safe enough that I can pivot back out. Mm-hmm. Flygon's asleep. It's not a good pivot. Jolteon's dead. Blastoise is at 25%. Weezing is not a pivot.
Yeah.
And it's threatened by Starmie. So he goes to Grimmsnarl, and, Astro's got the free switch here. He goes to Revavroom, which I think is really good. But I think that he thinks a little bit too much about, like, how do I get more momentum here? And he goes for the parting shot on this Grimmsnarl, but Revavroom's kind of the best thing to be in right now. So, like, there's no switch into a gunk shot here.
Yeah, that's a good point. And he goes to
there's no switch into the gunk shot,
which just showed it doesn't have a poison move. So that's a good point. Maybe, like trying to overpredict their parting shot. I guess it is a tough-ish situation to be in. Because if they parting shot, you'd love to hit yours on the same turn. Actually, I mean, kudos to the Thunderwave there, actually being a really good option. Using it for the first time, and it cripples the Revavroom for the rest of the game and puts momentum back in his hands. Yeah,
and taking out the Grimmsnarl there. So, I mean, what a lot of Darmanitan games come down to is it kind of becomes like a sack war, because the Darmanitan's going to be choiced. And if you get that 5-4 advantage against it, by killing a Grimmsnarl there, then, you bring in your Conkeldurr, you bring in your Starmie, like, you just start killing things too. And maybe that's enough to take you through to the end of the game.
Yeah, and after that Thunderwave and a parting shot, the momentum swings back in his favor when this Weezing nails the Celebi.
Yeah.
He switches out here.
And that Psychic, I went back and I calced that, and that Psychic would have killed Weezing.
Wow.
So that was a good switch. Because that'll come into play in the kind of the end game too. And yeah, I think at this point, Cam is just trying to get damage on things, chip them down, and start, U-turning with Darmanitan and Flare Blitzing with Darmanitan, taking things out.
Yeah, and that Darkest Lariat did a surprisingly decent amount of damage. I mean, that's going to start to scare the Rever Room now, so that's on the table, especially while it's paralyzed. And in comes the Blastoise to soak the Gunk Shot. This is the first time we're seeing the Gunk Shot, too. And like you said, now it becomes a sack war because every time Astro gets killed, the Darm gets to come in.
Yeah, and one thing that I was thinking here, looking at this, is, what is there on Astro's team that can take a Flare Blitz? And I think Conk can take one, but it can't switch into it. And Starmie can take one, but it can't switch into it. And everything else dies. And so, to me, there's two opportunities to try to revenge kill this Darm. Conkeldurr needs to do it with, I think that Astro might have been choice banned Iron Fist, because it seems like he locks into a move later. You probably have, a Hydro Pump will kill it, and a Close Combat will kill it. And those are basically going to be your only opportunities.
Yeah, without the Stealth Rock chipping away at it. But it's also going to take a chunk from Flare Blitz.
No, Sheer Force. Does it take Recoil?
Oops.
It does take Recoil. Okay. So the Recoil matters, but I think that because Starmie and Conkeldurr can take it from full health anyway, it just becomes a matter of getting them in when you can safely click a move against it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that Hydro Pump, that Hydro Pump miss was really, really important.
Oh yeah, I mean that does half or more. I mean that does most of Grimstar's health, right? Because that's on analytic.
Yeah.
Too.
So I calced this. I don't exactly know the Grimmsnarl set. I think that I did a couple calcs into it just based on the damage it did before. But if it's a Fizz Def Grimmsnarl, it's a roll to kill from full health with analytic because he's switching into it, so he gets the analytic boost. Based on the Zoroark damage, it's probably special defense, so it's not a roll to kill, but at that point, so imagine the situation here where this Grimmsnarl switches in, and it's now at 30%. It has, basically two options. It can Parting Shot, and something else will die on the switch in. Or it can Thunder Wave the Starmie.
Which he's discovered is not Natural Cure, so very relevant.
True. And then from there, the way this plays out is that it would Thunder Wave the Starmie and probably die to Hydro Pump. But then you have a Sleeping Flygon, a Weezing that gets one-shot by Celebi, and a Conkeldurr which can take a Flare Blitz and kill Darmanitan.
Yeah, so this is, a really pivotal moment.
Yeah, I think that, who knows what's going to happen? Thunder Wave could paralyze the Starmie, it could still miss the Hydro Pump. But I think that if Starmie kills Grimmsnarl here, Astro probably wins this game. So, sad to see that miss, but he also clicked Hydro Pump 5 times, so, you figure one of them's going to miss.
I think he missed another one earlier as well.
Yeah, I think so too. But
I wonder if there was a point where Surf or, would have been enough to secure a win.
Yeah, and I think it was specs based on the damage. But it's just hard to say. He gets Conkin on the Grimmsnarl, that's good, but I think Weezing walls this thing pretty hard.
Right. That Weezing's so important to keep alive for the Conk.
Yeah. Yeah, he brings in the Starmie on the Weezing, which is fine. Because Weezing, it didn't get the poison or anything like that. And then he gets the chance to take out Flygon. He goes into Celebi,
which is such a good move. This is so good.
I was really worried when he did that.
Me too. Me too, but it makes so much sense because it kills the Flygon and chips the Darmanitan for the rest of the game.
What I was really worried about when he switched into Celebi is that he was going to click Recover and then die to U-turn.
Die to U-turn, yeah.
Yeah, or click Recover and then, and then kill the Flygon with Psychic or something, and then still die to Darm. So the Stealth Rock was really good. I think getting Starmie out is really good because then you're not, he's not just going to bring in Darmanitan and U-turn and kill it. And the Flygon I think hasn't been sleeping at all, so he's got.
Yeah, this
the switch to Celebi.
The first turn. He's lucky to not, get the wake up into U-turn, but considering he got it in, and I mean, I love the Stealth Rock. This is... I mean, it makes the Dharm really close to the end. It makes it so much easier to hit with, like, Bullet Punch. Especially if you're expecting that to hit it after a -1. Because this Dharm isn't...
Yeah.
I mean, this Grimmsnarl isn't dying anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'm telling you, Astro's different this season. He's different.
Yeah, I really liked this match. There's a lot of really smart play and really tight situations. Tangrowth, he's figured out it can just come into Grimmsnarl for free. And so this turn I thought was really, really smart.
Dude.
He reflects on the sack into Flygon.
I'm telling you, man,
which
he's different.
Yeah, because if he doesn't reflect there, then it's a free Dharm switch in.
Yeah.
But bulky Tangrowth with Reflect Up, takes
Could
a Flare
live
Blitz,
a Scarf Flare
right?
Blitz. I bet it would, and it's taking recoil damage and it's taking rocks damage. I mean, that's really favorable for Astro.
Yeah. So from here, it was looking pretty good for Astro, even missing those Hydro Pumps. I mean, Celebi's at 4%, sure, but not looking too bad. Weezing can come in, it totally walls this thing, but it's gotten knocked, it's getting chipped down, it doesn't have recovery. And then it just Sludge Bombs and kills the Tangrowth. I think that that was a good turn. And this is one of my favorite plays of the game. So Astro, he comes in on the Weezing Galar, which is maybe the only thing that walls Conkeldurr.
Yeah.
Because we don't know if the Conkeldurr's got Bullet Punch or Mach Punch or whatever. And Celebi here is threatening the Psychic. And, Cam plays it safe, goes to Grimmsnarl, and he gets U-turned on.
Yeah.
So I loved that play.
That
was great. And now here's a chance for Starmie to kill the Grimmsnarl. He goes into Conk. Didn't love that as much, and here's why. So I think if you go to Starmie here, Hydro Pump is a good roll to kill Grimmsnarl.
Surf. God, I mean, I hope it has Surf.
Twice. Sure.
Yeah.
Ice Beam, whatever. And if you... And the way that plays out, probably, is Starmie kills Grimmsnarl, and Darmanitan comes in and kills Starmie. And Darmanitan's got a couple options. What was up?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and then here's the situation. So Starmie is at, I don't know, Thunder Wave, 20%, doesn't really matter. And Astro has Starmie in on the Darmanitan coming in, and Astro has Conkeldurr in the back, and he has Celebi in the back. If Darmanitan clicks into Flare Blitz, then Conkeldurr can come in, and probably 2-hit KO Weezing Galar even on the switch in. It's going to take rocks damage. He can go for some neutral move. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Darmanitan kills Starmie with U-turn and goes out to Weezing Galar, Celebi comes in and can kill it with Psychic every time. And then he still has Conkeldurr take out Darmanitan.
Yeah.
But he went to Conkeldurr here, which I think... was a misplay, and I think that Starmie here taking out the Grimmsnarl would have been a winning play.
This came down so close, and even after all the great plays, just one slightly unoptimal decision.
Yeah, and then he does go back out to Starmie here. I don't know if he realized or he was trying to catch a switch into Weezing, because a switch into Weezing would have been great too. But when you've got 3 guys and he's got 3 guys. If you can get the first kill and trade down, then, go for it.
Right. Man.
You lose it to the Reflect, which if I was Cam, I would have been sweating. And then he misses Hydro Pump again. And that one really made me sad because basically everything I just said, if that Hydro Pump hits, it plays out the exact same way.
Yeah. Because this guy dies and you've got Celebi Conkeldurr left. Man, he had a second chance at redemption, and the Hydro Pump missed.
He got totally bailed out from, what I see as a misplay. And then it didn't matter. Oh, God, it makes me mad. And so I actually did go calc this, too. So, Adamant, Choice Scarf, Sheer Force, Darmanitan. We don't know that it was Adamant. It could be, I guess we could calc it against the Starmie, but even Adamant, Sheer Force, Darmanitan, at most does 88% to Conkeldurr, and that's a no-bulk Conkeldurr. We know the Conkeldurr's got some bulk because it loses a Speed War to Weezing later. So Conkeldurr can always take a Flare Blitz from that Darmanitan and kill it. So if that Hydro Pump had killed on that, Grimmsnarl switch in, you bring in... this scenario, imagine the Grimmsnarl's dead.
Yeah.
Darmanitan has to come in because Weezing dies.
Yep.
Darmanitan kills the Starmie. Doesn't really matter. Flare Blitz, U-turn, who cares? Conkeldurr comes in, and it can kill it with close combat.
Yep. Or if it U-turned, the Celebi comes in and clicks Psychic.
And kills the Weezing, yeah. And the Weezing, if Astro has any coverage move that's not a fighting move, Rock Slide, whatever, he can go for that, and that'll kill the Weezing after Rocks.
Yeah. So even after all this, Astro is still almost in a winning position against Cam, but the Hydro let him down again.
And you know what's sad, dude?
He hit it after the analytic, right?
Yeah, so the analytic doesn't matter. So the analytic, if he had gotten it, it would have died because of analytic. I love analytic, but it's just hard. It's basically, you catch things. It's almost like stakeout.
Yeah. I remember Trey's analytic Magnezone that he was running house with.
Magnezone's a little bit slower, so you maybe get more chances.
Yeah, I think when I watched this live, I didn't realize it was analytic and didn't realize that a lot of these almost kills were possibly stronger under other scenarios. So, yeah, this was crazy close.
Yeah. And then he goes to Celebi but gets parting shotted. And then Darm, can kill this thing. And then Conk, I think, is banded, so it has to lock into something.
Yeah, free parting shot. He gets to do this twice if he wants, Fire Punch isn't bad. I mean, I guess fighting isn't an option into the Weezing.
Yeah, and here so parting shot, I guess you don't know if this Conkeldurr has speed. Your Grimmsnarl probably doesn't have speed. You don't know if it's like a fully defensive Conkeldurr, physical defensive Conkeldurr. But, you have two fairy types. If either of them hit it with a fairy move, Flare Blitz will kill it.
Yeah.
So it's just, how do I get in one of these guys to get some attack on it? It winds up getting confused and dies to the Weezing. But, I mean, the Weezing outspeeding it means that the game was over at that point.
Also true.
Yeah. So, I mean, the confusion was, a cherry on top of bad luck. It probably changed the differential from, 3-0 to 2-0, or 2-0 to 3-0.
Man.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where that game could have gone a different way.
Yeah, that was close. All right, we've got one more, our 8th match that was completed on time, and this is Robo Skanky Leg.
I really I like looking at these teams too because both Skanky and Robert have this pretty overwhelming offensive threat in Metagross and Hisuian Arcanine. And they both have a really good counter to it in the right circumstances with Dondozo and with Diancie. So it's like immediately you both have, this very strong physical threat and the thing that walls it, and then the other things that are trying to support that.
Yeah.
Thundurus also looked really scary into Robert's team. It can run moves that put pressure on every single one of these Pokemon. I can't see Brambleghast.
Brambleghast is just hiding behind Metagross.
Yeah, you can imagine an acrobatics into the hiding Brambleghast. Grass Knot, electric moves, flying moves. Like Thundurus is looking pretty scary. I don't think it wound up being an acrobatics set, but that's something that I would be worrying about. Robert had some things on the bench which could have made some pressure on this team. He had a Galvantula, which... when you're facing down Dondozo, it was probably like really tempting to bring, just because clicking Thunder is good. And then Skanky, I thought Skanky brought like the best 6 Pokemon, so I wouldn't really have changed anything there. I would have maybe thought about bringing Webs into Hisuian Arcanine, but I would have been wrong because it wound up being Heavy Duty Boots anyway. True. That's just one of the things that I thought looking at those teams.
So we get Metagross into Thundurus to start it off.
Yeah, and if I'm Skanky here, I mean, he does have Dondozo, which is a pretty good Metagross wall. I would be so tempted to just click knockoff into Metagross. You don't know if this thing is Agility, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Leftovers, who knows, Life Orb. I would just love to remove that item and probably live whatever hit it does.
Yeah, he's probably thinking, like, is this guy going for the win on turn 1? Is this how this ends?
Yeah. Goes for the U-turn, and he goes into Dondozo. And I think, Dondozo basically fully walls Metagross. Doesn't really matter if it boosts its attack because it's unaware. I thought Assault Vest was a strange choice for Dondozo.
Yes, yeah.
I would think that you would be wanting to have this thing basically to switch into Metagross and maybe Slitherwing and maybe Overqwil, you know, like the physical threats. And if you're constantly switching it in, you want that leftover ceiling. And the things that looking at Robert's team, like
It's like, what is the
Galvantula,
Assault Vest for?
yeah, like Galvantula 2 KOs it with Thunder, even through Assault Vest, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Moltres Galar, like it helps deal with that a little bit better. That was one of the things Robert had on the bench. But the other things Robert has are, Marowak, Alola, physical attacker, Maushold, physical attacker, Altaria, Regigigas, physical attackers. Like Robert's got a very physical team. And then he has, Galvantula and Diancie. And Diancie's kind of a little bit of both. So I thought Assault Vest kind of kept him from doing the role that Dondozo, I think, was meant to do here, which was switch into Metagross, switch into Slitherwing.
Right.
And then, too, like this Dondozo, it's Assault Vest. You don't have to worry about rest. You just have to slowly chip this thing down. Or, really slowly chip it down because there's going to be Grassy Surge healing it.
Yeah, it has no healing, really.
Yeah, and, and that takes a lot of pressure off, too, because now, like, you don't have to worry about Curse. You don't have to worry about rest. You just have to worry about surviving long enough to get it down to 0.
Yeah, and you've knocked off the Assault Vest turn 1, so you've crippled something this was planning to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brambleghast, love this in the Dondozo.
This is such a cool
Strength
set.
Sap is broken.
This is such a cool set. Strength Sap is broken, and Curse is crazy.
Yeah, and I love the Curse here, too, because Skanky's entire team only has passive recovery. It's got Grassy Surge, maybe leftovers. Nothing, and, maybe Horn Leech from Tapu Bulu. There is no recover, there is no slack off, there's nothing. So if you can get a free 25% on something, maybe free 50%, and then just Strength Sap back up to full, I mean, it's a pretty slow team. Tapu Bulu, Goodra, Dondozo, you'll probably get a chance to get a Strength Sap off and just heal up to full sometime later. So why not just immediately get some chip damage on something?
Yeah, and we've already seen it scare out the Dondozo, so he probably knows he's going to have that entry path for the rest of the game every time the Dozo comes out.
Yeah, we see the Diancie here, and this is actually a really scary Diancie. So it goes for a Calm Mind on the Dondozo switch in, and that Diancie, it also reveals later that it has Diamond Storm, and if it gets a Diamond Storm and a Calm Mind boost, I'm not sure that there's really anything that can be done to stop it.
Yeah, especially without a way to heal the Dondozo. It's just clicking Liquidation and hoping to get lucky.
Yeah, and even if it gets a defense drop with Liquidation, it doesn't matter because it's unaware. I mean, probably. I don't know if Dondozo gets other abilities, but if you get a defense drop, it doesn't matter. Like, you still hit the same damage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just realized. It doesn't matter if he gets a defense drop. It also doesn't matter if he gets a Diamond Storm boost because it's unaware. So, maybe self to take out the Dondozo.
True. But
still,
the Dondozo still remains as the only answer, and it's not one-shotting that, two-shotting that with Liquidation, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this Brambleghast is going to sit on Dozo all game, and now beneficiary of the grassy terrain.
Yeah, and even through that crit Avalanche, you can still just Strength Sap up to full. And then it'll be hitting you even for a weaker amount. I don't think he winds up doing that. I think he got a little... Oh, no, he just stayed in Strength Sap. Yeah, so exactly.
He knows he's faster.
The Defiant boost on the Thundurus is a little scary.
This is good. This is a great switch.
Yeah. And if this thing is...
He actually has two good switch-ins for Brambleghast, being the Sap Sipper that we see later and this Defiant on the Strength Sap. So this actually, like, all of a sudden is like, uh-oh, this is scary.
Yeah, because this could be an Acrobatics knockoff sort of set. And then you're putting a lot of pressure on the rest of Robert's team.
Yeah, well, it's definitely Boots. We see knockoff in return, and apparently it's walled by the Diancie.
Yeah, and we do see a little bit more of it later. It's got Grass Knot, which I think it uses to take out Quagsire, so it's just more of a pivot set.
Yep.
But still, that Thundurus is just a good switch into the Brambleghast. He gets the Diamond Storm boost on Tapu Bulu, and here he crits him through the defense boost. When this happened, I got, a little sad on Robert's
Oh,
behalf, but I went
dude,
and looked at the numbers after. It did not matter at all.
what?
So
Seriously?
here's why it didn't matter. He would still die to 2 or 3 of them, but it was doing a minimum of 33%. This is a leftovers, grassy terrain, Tapu Bulu. The Diancie has not calm minded. It's got body press and I think Moonblast.
So it's not dealing a whole lot of damage.
So yeah, like it maybe takes longer and maybe you switch out, but this Bulu is not threatened by this Diancie at all.
Whatever.
So
I still think he cheated.
yeah, I still felt that way when I saw it. But when I started thinking about it, it's like, okay, he's gonna heal Horn Leech, leftovers, Grassy Surge.
True.
It doesn't really matter, but still don't want to get crit when your Diancie just got a defense boost. Come on. And so here, heavy slam on the Dondozo. And if I'm Robert, I'm a little bit worried. Like he hasn't made a lot of progress on any of Skanky's teams. Like I think a lot has healed back up under grassy terrain. Like nothing's really gotten chipped down. He's got stealth rocks down, and I don't think there's really a way of getting rid of them. But with grassy terrain and the Arcanine is boots, there's just a lot that doesn't really care about stealth rock. So I'd be kind of worried at this point if I'm Robert. Like how am I actually breaking through here?
Yeah, especially losing one of his setup sweepers already, and the only thing he's got to show for it are rocks, a couple knockoffs, and a half health Gudra.
Yeah.
Plus, he learns that this Dozo actually has a move to hit the Bramblegast on the switch.
Yeah, and the Bramblegast can still sit on it forever with Strength Sap, but it's like he's got a Boots Thunderous, which gets a boost from it, and can click U-turn. He's got a Strength Sap Sipper Gudra, so he's got answers to the Bramblegast too. Catches the Metagross on the switch with Fire Blast. I didn't love that switch. I think the Bramblegast is probably really tempting to save instead of the Metagross because it comes in on Dondozo. It comes in on Bulu pretty well. I think that, Fire move into Bramblegast from Gudra is like a pretty expected click, I would say. I mean, Gudra can run a lot of moves. It has Thunderbolt, Power Whip, Dragon moves, Earthquake, Fire move, but it usually runs a Fire move. So, I would...
Maybe he's feeling
I'm not sure
Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb was probably the read.
Maybe.
But even then, Overquill, perhaps?
Maybe, or maybe even just poltergeisting it. I think
True.
you probably live one with Bramblegast and can take it out, and maybe get a Strength Sap later. The Metagross switch definitely, that made me worried for Robert. Not because Metagross is doing a lot here with Dondozo, but it's at least putting pressure to keep forcing switches, and it's keeping Tapu Bulu out because that can't switch in. And Grassy Surge is really the thing like healing up Skanky's guys right now.
Mm-hmm. The Metagross did a lot, though. I think it kind of caught Skanky off guard. This supporting Metagross got a couple, it got a knock, it got the rocks up.
Yeah, and in any game you're trying to get information. You're knocking off items, you're scouting sets, and Robert has 3 Pokemon he has not brought in at all. So, that's always valuable information, and they're pretty scary ones too. Like Slitherwing, it's very, very strong. Not that fast, but very strong. And I think that he was even running a Scarp Slitherwing here, so he's able to start chipping down and using like these Pokemon he hasn't brought in yet to put a little more pressure. But I was still pretty worried. Metagross is down, Diancie's down. Bramblegast seems like Skanky's got lots of answers for. I was trying to look at this of, how is Robert actually going to win from this position?
Yeah, one thing I think he did really well is he used this Scarf Slitherwing, this Scarf U-turn to make it feel like he wasn't at a Pokemon disadvantage. He just always brought it in at opportune moments and was keeping momentum with it for the rest of the game. So it never felt like he was getting stuck or having to... He was like never sacking stuff late in the game because he was keeping momentum.
Yeah, and this Quagsire... So Dondozo, we know it's Vortex because it's Assault Vest. Mm-hmm. I think Dondozo does get Trailblaze. It probably doesn't have it. There's probably 4 better moves to run. There's nothing it can do to touch Quagsire. I think probably when Quagsire comes on Dondozo, that's just got to be an immediate switch out. I mean, Quagsire's Hazard Stacker. kind of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Like you probably want to stay in and see what it does, but you've got like a lot of things which can pressure it. You've got 2 or 3 things that have grass moves. And right now Robert's down to 4 Pokemon, so you probably want to. I would have probably wanted to see Skanky switch out Dondozo immediately,
Mm-hmm.
rather than let Robert get up a layer of Toxic Spikes, because a lot of this game has been Skanky chip healing up with leftovers, Grassy Surge, those sorts of things. And if all those guys get poisoned, that chip healing goes out of the way, and then suddenly it's a much different game. Thunders comes in, kills Quagsire. It's sad.
I
But
feel
what
like
you gonna
the
do?
Grass Knot was a little predictable, but probably too hard to hedge into what you had left. After showing you turn knockoff, you might rather take it or lose the Quagsire. I mean, it's done its job getting those spikes down late game.
Yeah, and maybe you think from here that that's enough. Like, you got your Toxic Spikes down, maybe you can win from this spot.
This is crazy. I mean, Skanky's got a 6-3 advantage, and
It looks bad. And I don't think that it was great for... Like, this is a bad position to fight out of, for sure. Brambleghast lives a knockoff, which is really good. Poltergeist. He could have also gone for Strength Sap and then Poltergeisted.
mm-hmm.
But, then you always worry about, what's switching in on this thing. But, you kind of want Skanky to switch here, because you do have the Toxic Spikes down now.
Yeah, true.
So that's just one line he could have done, but you're still taking a good bit of damage on the turn after. It sort of puts into Skanky's mind, like, maybe he will just stay here and Strength Sap me to -6, and I have to force something else to happen. But he hits the Poltergeist, and then... So we see the switch to Slitherwing on what was it?
On the Thundy, and then Thundy U-turns.
Yeah, knockoff. Poltergeist. Slitherwing and U-turn. So this is one of the really, really good parts about not revealing your sets. He has only U-turned with Slitherwing when things have switched into it.
Yep.
He has revealed no speed information. We know it's not booster energy. Skanky could have calced whether it was Choice Band or, Silver Powder or something like that. But, he has to guess whether this is Choice Scarf. And I think it was Choice Scarf because it then high horsepower is this Arcanine.
Boom. From the top rope.
And I love that. And now it's a really different game. You've got Brambleghast, which is pretty weak, but you've got T-Spikes down, you've got Stealth Rock, you've got a Scarf Slitherwing coming off of, 130 or whatever base attack. Not too bad. You've still got Overquill, which hits super effectively against a lot of Skanky's Pokemon.
Yeah, and kind of stating the obvious here, but he got rid of his opponent's biggest threat after he lost all of his checks for it.
Yes, that too. And even this Dondozo, I mean, you've got an Intimidate Quillfish. It's just got 4 attacks, 4 physical attacks. Why not just switch in? It'll take some toxic damage and even get a little bailed out. He's into a Zen Headbutt.
And that Bar Barrage coupled with the late game Toxic Spike is just beautiful. It's just so nice.
Yeah. And so I think that this is a moment too. So Crocodile comes in on the Quillfish. And there's basically... Well, so we still got 1 sack, so it'll, happen again. But so I think Krook gets a free kill on the Brambleghast here. Yeah, with Earthquake. And then Slitherwing comes in and can immediately threaten something.
Yeah, because now Skanky's figured out its Scarf. He knows... I mean, Krook probably doesn't handle it anyway.
Yeah, and, Robert knows that Crocodile is kind of forced out by this thing. He outspeeds it. He just goes for a U-turn,
Yeah.
He forces another switch from Skanky. He forces more poison turns. He heals up a little bit with Grassy Surge. And, here I really like that play too. So he could have threatened the Bulu with Poison Move, but, he's going to live any Fairy Attack. He probably didn't expect the Dazzling Gleam, which was coming, because Tapu Bulu is usually physical, but he's probably thinking, I intimidated this thing. It's toxic. This is a good turn to set up. I'm faster than it. Sure.
Yeah, this feels like what Overquill was meant to do. Come in late, set up that sword stance on a good Intimidate, and go for the win.
Yeah, Dazzling Gleam, pretty unexpected. Just does a good bit, but lefties, Grassy Surge.
Lots
And
of
now the
text
Grassy
on
Train is
screen.
really working against Skanky because Robert is getting, one-shots, so none of Skanky's Pokemon are healing, and Quillfish is healing up itself. The Gudra so if you go back a couple turns to right after this Bulu gets killed. So Swords Dance, Barbarage, love it, it dies. Um, Skanky had to know that Gudra would die to this. I feel like at this point, if you're trying to win, you basically have like 150-50, which is you bring in Krook and you either Earthquake, predicting he stays in, or you knock off the Choice Scarf, predicting he switches.
Mm-hmm.
And if you knock off the Choice Scarf, I don't know Thunderous's last move. Maybe it's a flying move. Maybe you can kill Slitherwing.
Yeah, this switching is tough. Maybe he's thinking there's a chance it outspeeds. If he had a slow Bulu, he might not know the speed on this Overquill because a max speed Gudra would outspeed Jolly. But maybe. I still think obviously the Crook is better first.
Yeah,
and if you guess wrong here, you get nothing.
Yeah, and I think from here that's really the only line as you bring in Krook and you try to win a 50-50. And how much hit points does Krook have?
88.
Okay, so yeah, you live in Aqua Jet after Intimidate, so you get a chance. And I think that's what he winds up... No, I think he brings in Thunderous here, and he gets Aqua Jetted. And, the Thunderous, I don't think it can even really touch Overquill.
Right.
Another thing that's hard about this, too, is that Grassy Terrain makes Earthquake, I think 50% weaker.
Yeah, the Earthquake is not great there.
Yeah, and all of these turns are... I mean, Overquill is healing
it's healed so much.
Grassy Terrain every single turn. So, the Thunderous turn, the Gudra turn, that is probably pushing it out of Earthquake range. And then it's not even a 50-50 anymore. It's just, you stay in, you can take an Earthquake and kill it. I think he switches, and, this is a 50-50 moment. Grassy Terrain goes down, but loses the 50-50 anyway, and from here, whether you just close combats twice or, U-turns and Aqua Jets, Robert's got it from here. But yeah, really interesting to see how just, once the T-Spikes got up and one Pokemon went down, Overquill and Slitherwing were just able to pivot back and forth and just dismantle the rest of the team.
Yeah, that ending was really, really clean from Robo. He really flipped that match around. Great pivoting, great calls, and fun match to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the matches this week were... I mean, there were a lot of really good matches this week. There's a lot of really interesting play. Really, really good play, too. I mean, the 3 matches we covered, the endgames of all of them were non-obvious. There were a lot of different lines that they could have gone. There are different ways they could have played out. There was a lot of different luck. I got pretty washed by Nips. We don't have to look back at that match. But no, there was just a lot of really good play. I think people are building really good teams other than ChatGPT, which got swept by the lake. And yeah, I'm obviously trying to do well for myself, but I'm really just excited at kind of the level of play we're seeing out of everyone. This is a 38 turn game and it came down to the wire. That's awesome to see.
Yeah, there's been a ton of parity, a lot of close matches, even unexpected close ones. So great season so far. We have one more week 2 match we're going to see tomorrow between Eden and Trey. And then starting week 3, we have RJ taking over Brandon's team. And he said, you know me, I rock with what I got. So he's taking the Pseudo Rain team and rolling with it. So good luck to him on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. I think it's going to be really fun.
For sure. All right, Alex, thanks for joining me. Thanks for talking Pokemon. Thanks for the analysis. A ton of fun.
Sure.